Hello, in this video I will do a TSI math exam and then this will be math exam 2. So TSI. So TSI stands for uh, Sing- Texas Successive Initiative Exam. So this will be the second one. Okay, let's begin. So on the exam you can use a calculator. So it's just that you can't bring your own. They'll provide you. So go ahead and let's start with which one. Simplify the expression. So what we want to do is we have 8 divided by 3/5. So if you want you can rewrite this as 8 over 1 and then divide it by 3/5. You can either cross multiply or you can change this divide sign into multiplication. But if you do that, you're gonna have to flip this. So this would be 5/3 and then this would be 8 over 1. And then when you're multiplying fractions, you do multiply across. So 8 times 5 is 40, and 1 times 3 is 3. And does 40 go into 3 nicely? Let's see. Oops. I no. But let's see. If you look at all the choices, oh, I see my choice, but can it be reduced? I don't think so. No, it can't. Okay, so it would be letter A. Okay, that wasn't too bad, right? Find the solution to the equation 153, 1.53 over 100. Um, the good news is over 100. You could put this in the calculator, and if you do that, that would be 0.0153. And I think what you could do is, because we're dividing by 100, you can move this decimal places 2 places to the left. This is 1, 2. See? This is a trailing, this is a leading 0, so you could put that in, so that would be, it's not A, because there's 2 zeros here. I think it's B, because it's 0.0153. Okay, not too bad so far. Okay, arrange the decimals in order from least to greatest. So we have these decimals, and we gotta go from smallest to large, from least to large, so from smallest to greatest. So, you can count how many terms we have. One, two, three, four, five. So we have 5 terms. So that's good to know. So it looks like my smallest number is 1.37052. The next one would be 1.375. The next one would be 1.4. The next one will be 1.401. Next one will be 1.5732. So which one is these ones? Which is the correct answer? It looks like it's letter. Yeah, letter B, right? 1.37052, 1.375, 1.4, 1.401, 1.573. Correct. Okay, next one. Uh, find 35% of 20. These are not too bad. So find, so basically I'm going to convert 35% to a decimal. So move it 2 places to the left. So that's 0.35. We know that the word of always means multiplication. So you could put parentheses and then 20. And you simply put that in the calculator and you get your answer. 0.35 times by 20 is 7. exactly 7. Give me 1 second. Okay. Yeah. Okay, that's much better. Okay, so that is number C. Simplify the expression 2.5 divided by 2. So it's really 2.5 divided by 2 over 1. And what you can do is either cross multiply or change this side into a multiplication. Then flip it. If you do that, you're going to have to flip this and then multiply across. 2.5 times 1 is 2.5. 2 times 2 is 4. And you get 0.625. What? I don't see my answer. Did I do that right? 2.5? The heck? Oh no, you could just put this in. I don't understand why. Yeah, it should be right. 2.5. Oh, right here. Why did I put a 1? It should be a 1 here, so this should be a 2. That's why you don't see my answer because it is should be a 1.25. Letter B. Arrange the following from in increasing order. So from least to greatest. So we have 3/2, 12/32, 3/4, and then 7/16. So yeah, there's you can use your calculator if you want. So yeah, so 3/2 is the same thing as 1.5. If you put that in the calculator, over 32 is the same thing as 0.375. 3/4 is the same thing as 0.75, and 7/16 is 0.4375. Now they want it in the fractions, so which is the smallest? It looks like 0.375, so that's 12 and 32. The next one is, I think this one, 0.4, so that is 7/16. And then the next one is 3/4. Um, this one, which is, yeah, 3/4. And then finally, the largest one is 1.5, which is 3/2. So that is 12/32, 12 out of 32, 7 out of 16, 3/4, and 3/2. Letter B. Question 7, 176, 100. You can just simply put that in calculator, right? 176 times 3. That is 528. Okay, this one, we have 16/3 divided by 8/2. Um, so we have a complex fraction. I don't really like this slanted. I like it horizontal. So if you want, you can say 16/3 over 8/2. And now, and as I think of it, 16/3 is perfect the way it is. And then divided by, right? You can replace this long horizontal line with this divide sign. And then 8/2, we can simplify that. That's 4, or 4/1. Then what you could do is you can cross multiply. So 1 times 16, and then 3 times 4 is 12. And I believe this could be reduced by at least 2. So 16 divided by 2 is 8, and 12 divided by 2 is 6. I think we could go a bit further by 2. So 8 divided by 2 is 4, 6 divided by 2 is 3. So C, 4/3. What is the volume of a cylinder below? So you need to know the formula of a cylinder. I mean the volume of cylinders. So, and as you can see, all the choices are in pi. So what is, let me, so the volume of a cylinder is, I believe it's pi r. You double check. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna check. Yes, it's pi r square h. Okay. Don't mind my writing tablet. It's really good. So it's yeah, it's pi r squared times, that's pi, and then they tell us everything we need. Sometimes they'll give you a diameter, but luckily we have a radius, which is 8, so it's 8 square, and then my height is 20. Bring it up a bit, this is pi, and then 8 squared is 64 times 20, and oops, sorry, and I get 20 times 64 is 1280. 1280. A ceramic tile costs 350 per square foot. If you need to tile a kitchen whose area is 48 square feet, what is the total price of tile needed? What is the total price of the tiles needed? So imagine if you want to tile a kitchen with an area. So wait, a certain ceramic tile costs 350 per square feet. Oh, you don't even have to draw the image. You just times the area of that place by 350. So the cost is going to be 48 times 350. And you sometimes have to be careful because they might, this might be in inches and then this might be in feet, right? So sometimes you do have to convert it, but we're lucky this is all in feet, so there's no conversion. And put that in the calculator. And I get $168. See, what is the area of the parallelogram below? So I think this is a base times height. Yeah, area of a parallelogram. Yeah, it is going to be base times height over times height. Let me double check. Or is it not enough information? Um, What is the area of the parallelogram? Look, it's just base times height. It's what is a shape? It's a parallelogram. Uh, I know I found it's probably easier than it looks. Yeah, I think it's just 30 times 7. So that would be 210. Yes, I think that's it. Okay, let's see. 12. What is the cost of a $55 shirt after applying 12% discount? So can't you just take 12% of 55 and then whatever that is subtracted by 55? So if I do this, 12% is the same thing as 0.12. 12 means multiplication. Get 6.6. So obviously it's going to be cheaper than 55 because you are applying a discount. So it would be 55 minus 6.6, and you get 48.4 C. Is that the only way? Is there another way? Let's see. Okay, I was looking at, yeah, I think that's it. I'm just trying to think, is there another way we could do this? Mm, no, I think that's fine. What is the cost of $55? Sure, after applying 12% discount. Yeah, I think you can also do this. You could do the X times 100% minus 12%, and then equals to your cost of the shirt. I think that'll give you the same answer. Let's see. So what's 100% minus 12%? That is 88%. 5. And then how do I convert that to percentage? Move it two places to the left, so it's 0.88x equals 55. And then solve for x by dividing it by 0.88. Let's see. 62. Yeah, that's wrong. Yeah, you can't do this way. I don't know why I think of that. But I think the easiest way is just what is the cost of a $55 shirt after applying a 12% discount? So just find 12% 55, which is 6.6, and then subtract that by 55 because you know it's going to be discounted, right? What is the angle of theta? So here we have 30, both acute angles, 36 and 53, and we could find this angle. All you got to do is we know that the sum of a triangle adds up to 180, so 36 plus 53 plus theta, which I don't know, equals 180. 36 plus 53 is 89, plus theta equals 188. Subtract 89, subtract 89, you get 89. Why don't I see my answer? Did I do this right? 36 plus 53. Check. 36 plus 89. Why did I put 88? It should be 180. What's wrong? Okay, so 180 minus 89 is 91. Evaluate 31% of 20z, right? 31, let's convert that to decimal. 31% as a decimal is 0.31. Word of means multiplication, 20. Put it all together. 62. I mean 6.2. Letter C. Determine the length of x given the figure below. So there we have these triangles, and in this bigger triangle, um, what can we say about these triangles? I think we can say they're not congruent because they're not the same size and shape, right? But I could say there could be similar. That's my guess. Why do I say they're similar? Is because if you look at their angles, all their angles are congruent. Do you see how this has one tick mark and then this has one tick mark? That means these angles are congruent. And then you see how this has two tick marks and this has two tick marks. That means these two angles are congruent. And then this has three. So that means they're congruent. Now look at the sides. In this triangle, 20 is facing 2. And then in this triangle, 7 is facing the one tick mark. That has to be the same true for this one. So the two tick marks is right here. Okay, so as you can see, this two tick marks has no side lengths. And then we should have three tick marks. Yes. The thing is, we can't set it up as a proportion. Why can't we set it up in the proportion? See how this has 20 is facing the two tick marks? That means we have to have a side length of this two tick mark because we can't have two unknowns in a proportion, if that makes sense. So I'm going to say C, not enough information. Mary earns $182 after 13 hours of work at the same rate. Well, what would she earn 7 hours a week? So this is what's called, this is a proportion word problem. So how do you set it up? You set it up like this. So you could put dollars amount and then hours, dollars and then hours. So over here, this is 182 after 13 hours. And then what do they ask me? At the same rate, what would she have earned for 7 hours? 7 here, and then our unknown, that's how much we want to know. And then we will cross multiply, so that'd be 13x equals to 182 times 7. Or 74. This is 13x. divided by 13. It is 98. Right? That's simple. Proportion, set it up as a proportion. Make sure you have only one unknown. If you have two unknowns, you have to adjust it or it just doesn't work. In a right triangle, one leg has a length of x, the other leg has a length of y, and the hypotenuse has a length of h. Consider the acute angle theta opposite of the leg of the length y. Which of the following represents the correct expression of cosine theta? Okay, so imagine you have a right triangle like this, and it says one leg has a length of x. Maybe this could be the leg, and one other leg has a length of y, and then you have this hypotenuse. What else? Now we got to figure out where is the correct data, because if you don't put it correctly, it'll be wrong. So they're saying that consider the acute angle theta opposite of the leg of y. So here's y, the opposite. Is it this? No, let me see. Let me look at my note. No, actually, it's not there. It's would be right here. So I remember I did this one, and when I put theta here, it was wrong. So theta is going to be the opposite leg of y. So that would mean it's right here. Okay. And then what they want you to do is find cosine theta. So it is a right triangle, so you can use SOHCAHTOA. And how we do this is we want to find cosine. So cosine is adjacent or hypotenuse. So the theta does matter because here's theta. The adjacent side is y, and then the hypotenuse is h. Right? So y over h, b. Okay. This one finds tan theta, so you do need to know your units of a little bit. And this is a trig problem. And locate where 60 degree is. It is right here. And what are the coordinates of a 60-degree? We get to what is I remember. It's like so I know 30, this is how I remember. 30 has a coordinate, an x coordinate radical 3 over 2 and a y coordinate 1 half. So 60 is the reciprocal of that. That's how I remember that. So it's gonna be 1 half radical 3 over 2, right? So this is your x, and this is your y. So tangent of 60 degrees is y over x. So my y is radical 3 over 2. My x is 1 half. And as you can see, the twos cancels. Or if you do the complex fraction rate, radical 3 over 2 divided by 1 half. And then if you cross multiply, this is going to be 2 radical 3. And then 2 times 1 is 2. That becomes radical 3. Okay, so I think it's D. if b equals 2a and c equals 4/7 a, which of the following simplified version of the which of the following is a simplified version of the following expression? So all you got to do is plug in your values. And if you look at all the choices, your final answer is in terms of a. So if you got b or c, you know it's wrong. So the first one, 7 times a, and we said we don't know what a is, so we'll call it a. Minus 5 times b, b is 2 times a, plus 7 times c, so c is 4/7a. Okay, this is 7a. Negative 5 times 2 is negative 10a, plus 7 times 4/7a is a 7 cancels, so you're left with 4a. And then it's all about plugging like terms, so 7a plus 4a is 8, 9, 10, 11. So 10, 11a. And then you have a negative 10a. So what's 11a minus 10a? It is 1a. So letter C is the correct answer. Okay, this one's a real, let's see. Rachel wants to make 6 liters of 0.9 sodium chloride NaCl solution for an IV. She has 10 liters of 0.05% of NCl solution and 8 liters of 1.5% NCl solution. How much of these two solutions should she mix together to arrive at her goals? So, yeah, this one can be a little bit tricky. So, let's see. How would we set it up? Okay. We would set it up like, oops. Right. Okay. So this is how we're gonna do it. What do we know? So it says, how much of these two solutions should we mix together? So we could say, uh, CV equals 0.05 of NaCl per liter times X plus 1.5 NaCl per liter times it by Y. So we know one desired concentration, right? Yeah, we know that concentration is equal to 0.9 NaCl per liter. And the total volume is, they tell us the total volume is 6 liters. So that's what we know. Okay. And then what we're going to do is kind of set up a system of equation. So our first system equation, let me put it right here, it's x plus y equals 6 liters. And then the other one is going to be, well, if you solve for y, let me solve for y. You would have to subtract x from both sides, and you get y equals 6L minus x, right? So we found the y right here. Now, how do we find our x? We can put it back here, right? So let me put it right here. So we can replace this CV with our concentration 0.9 of NaCl over L times the the volume is 6 liters. So CV times means concentration times the volume, and then that equals to 0.05 uh, NaCl for L counted by X plus 1.5 NaCl over L times the Y, which is we said was 6L minus X. Okay, and then when you kind of do the algebra, so on the left side, 0.9 times the liters disappear. So you are left with 0.9 times 6, which is 5.4 NaCl. And then equals to, oh, the liters disappear, and then you're left with 0.05 X. And then over here, this simplifies as negative 1.45 NaCl X times liters. Well, what happens is when you do the algebra, so when you solve for X, right, you're gonna get this. So X is gonna equal to negative 3.6 NaCl divided by negative 1.45 NaCl. You get 2.48 liters. So now it's going to be 6L minus 2.48 liters, which is equal to 3.52. So that's how I got 3.52 liters of 0.9. Yeah, so that's why it's letter A. Okay, let's move on. Which expression below is equivalent to this? So all we got to do is FOIL it out, clean it up. So this is going to be negative, FOIL out this negative 4, so that's negative 4y squared. Negative 4 times negative 9 is positive, and 10 is 36y. And then negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. And then bring these down. So 7y plus 3y squared. And then all you gotta do is collect like terms. So I see you can collect the 3y squared and negative 4y squared, which is negative 1y squared. And then 36 plus 7 is 6. There's 7, 3, 9, 45, 2, 43, 43y minus 8. Okay. And that is going to be, let's see. Yeah, some of these are simple, some of these are hard. So 3 to the 5th, you could just put that in a calculator. Same thing as 3 times 3. 3 to 3. Okay. And we get, so 3 times 3 is 9, 3 times 3 is 9, times by 3. 243. Okay, here's a trig problem. Cosine theta is positive radical 3 over 2. What is x? So we got to find this missing leg, x, right here. And here's theta. And we can't just use Pythagorean because we have to have two sides. So we're going to use the SOHCAHTOA thing, right? And cosine theta is radical. So let's figure out what this left side is going to be. So what is cosine theta? So right here, what is cosine theta? So cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, right? But here's theta. My adjacent side is x, and then my hypotenuse is 5 because 5 is facing directly across the 90-degree. And then that's going to equal to radical 3 over 2. Cross multiply, so that's 2x equals to 5 radical 3, and then you solve for x, so you're going to divide this by 2, and then you get 5 radical 3 over 2. So letter C. Which graphola represents the equation y equals 2x minus 20? So yeah, we could kind of eliminate some. So my slope is positive 2 or 2 over 1, and my b is negative 20. So which one of these is the one? Um, you know what? Let's find the x-intercept while we're at it. So yeah, so let's quickly find the x-intercepts. How do you find the x-intercept? You set y to 0, right? So for x, you're going to add 20, add 20. So that's 20 equals 2x divided by 2. X equals 20 divided by 2 is 10. Okay, so we have an x-intercept of 10 and a y-intercept of negative 20, and our slope must be positive. So I know it's not A. So that slope is negative. Is it this one? So it says we have a y-intercept of negative 20. No, it has a y-intercept of positive 20. So y-intercept of negative 20, x-intercept positive 10, slope is positive. Looks good to me, but let's double check D. It is positive, but my x-intercept is off, so it can't be that one. Okay. Solve for x. So here we have a right triangle, right? We have an isosceles right triangle because we have these two singular tick marks. That means two angles or two sides are congruent. So we know that this side is congruent with this side. Um, should we use SOHCAHTOA? Probably. No, I wouldn't. Instead, I think we can just get away with using the Pythagorean theorem, right? Because we know that these two sides are congruent because of these two tick marks. So we can say a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So one of my leg is x, so I'm going to square that. One of my other leg is x as well. I'm going to square that. And then my hypotenuse is 20 squared. So x squared plus x squared is going to be 2x squared equals to 20 squared is 400. Divide this by 2, and we get x squared equals 400 divided by 2 is 200. And then take the square root, you get x equals square root of 200. And you don't see a decimal, so they simplify this. Can you think of two numbers multiplied 200? Be any 100 times 2, so 2 is prime. 100 is not prime. It can be broken down as 10 times 10. And these aren't prime, but you can circle pairs of two. So this 10, 10 just becomes 10, and then you're left with the prime number 2. Okay. So it would be 10 round to B. Okay, this one we have to simplify this. We have on the top, I know you can't see this, but it says x squared. Let me write it. X squared plus 3x minus 4 all over x minus 1. So you kind of have to factor this and cancel. So let's look at the top. You can factor this out nicely. This factors out as x, x, and then what two numbers multiply -4. When I add it gives you +3. I'm going to use 4 and 1, and I'm going to use +4 and -1. And then on the bottom, it's just x minus 1, and then x minus 1 cancels. You're left with x plus 1. D. Questions. Okay. This one's an easy one. Um, if x equals -360, what is the absolute value of x? Simple, right? Absolute value of -360 still spits out to be +360. So C. Solve the equation 3a minus 24 times 5a minus 12 equals to -12. Okay, so before you probably think maybe I should multiply everything by the LCD because we have a fraction. Don't. Instead, just try to FOIL out this -24. So what is -24 times 5a? Well, just multiply -24 times 5, and I get -120a over 8. And then -24 times -2 is +48. -120 divided by 8 is -15a. So 3 minus 15 is -12a. It's 48 equals to -12. Subtract 48. Subtract 48 to get -12a equals to -60. Divide this by -12. Divide this by -12. And you get 60 divided by -12 is 5. Okay, question 29. Find the amplitude and the period of this cosine graph. So the amplitude is basically the number in front of the cosine or sine, or it's the absolute value. So the amplitude is going to be the absolute value of whatever this number is. So the absolute value is 7/2, which is 7/2. And then the period of a cosine or a sine, I mean cosine and a sine, is basically period equals 2 pi over b. So that's going to be 2 pi. And then my b value is always the number in front of x. So in our case, our b will be 2. And then as you can see, the 2's cancel, so you're left with pi. So my amplitude is 7/2, and my period, oh, find the amplitude period. Oh, okay, so my amplitude is 7/2. I didn't know they're asking for phase shift, so phase shift is basically, we do have phase shift. So whatever your parenthesis is, in our case, it's 2x minus pi. Set that to 0 and solve for x. So we're going to add pi. So don't, pi is a constant. So it's like, you think of it as a number, right? So 2x equals pi plus 2. And you get x equals pi over 2. Okay, so my phase shift is positive pi over 2. So my amplitude is, what's my amplitude? My amplitude is 7/2. It's not A. Is it B? Amplitude 7/2, period is pi. Phase shift is pi over 2. I think this is the one, right? Amplitude is 7/2, period is pi, phase shift is pi over 2. So find the cube root of 64. So basically, is this, I think this might be a perfect cube. So basically, can you think of a number times itself 3 times? That'll give you 64. 4, right? 4 times 4 times 4 is 64. So it's going to be C. Okay. Question 31. What is the reference angle of 240 degrees? So you need to know kind of like the rules of a reference angle, and it's not the same thing as coterminal. So first locate where 240 in your unit circle is. So this is 0, this is 90, 180, and 270. So 240 would be around quadrant 3, right? So my theta is 240 degrees. The reference angle is, I believe it's a smaller angle. So what is the rule what is the reference angle rule when you're in quadrant 50? That is going to be, so the rule states theta prime, which basically means reference angle, is theta minus 180. So my theta is, what's my theta? My theta is 240, that was given, minus 180, and you get 60 degrees. So this acute angle is your reference angle, just 60 degrees. Okay, this one, in completing the square, which of the following expression is equivalent to 2x squared minus 8x plus 21? So they want you to complete the square, and Uh, I mean, you could do the long way, try each one, foil it out, clean it up. If it gives you this, that's the one. But I'll show you how to do it by completing the square. So first, I'm going to set the right side to 0. Then I'm going to move the constant to the right. So my constant is 21. So get that to the right by subtracting 21. So I get 2x squared minus 8x blank space. And then on the right, 0 minus 1 is negative 20. Okay. What do we put in this blank space? So what I do is wait, before you take half of your b and square it, that's what you usually do. Between the 2x squared and the negative 8x, you can factor something out. You can factor out 2. So that's what I should do. So I'm going to factor to 2, so it's going to be x squared minus 4x, and then blank space equals to negative 20, right? So now what do I put in my blank space? Well, you take half of your b, so your b is negative 4, right? Take half of that, which is negative 2, and then you're going to square that, which is 4. But don't be fooled. You would think you would add 4 to both sides, but because we factored a 2, right? It's really 4 times 2, which is 8. So you're going to add an 8 to both sides. So let me put it up here. So now you have 2 parentheses x squared minus 4x plus 8, and then negative 21 plus 3 is negative 21 is negative 13. And then what we're going to do is put this in factor form. So it's like going backwards. So it's going to be x and then half of your b. So your b is negative 4. Take half of that. That's 2 squared equals negative 13. And then finally move this constant to the left by adding 13. So you get 2 parentheses. X minus 2 squared plus 13. So that's letter C. Okay, here's a word problem. A geologist marks a small area of land and drills to measure the density at various steps below the surface, which are shown in graph below. The area under this graph is then proportional to what quantity? Um, what do you think? Is it A, mass under the area, B, volume under the area, marked off, C, the size of the area, marked off. It would be, I believe it would be mass under the area. So I think it's A. So let me show you. So here you in the graph, you have the x as the depth and the height as the density. The reason why it shows this is because the unit of the area under the graph must be the product of those of the x and y axis, where we've noted that the product of the depth and area is the volume, as the product of density and volume is the mass. So yeah, the reason why is because the units of the area under the graph must be a product of those of the x and y axis. So this is my x, yeah, right? This is my x, this is my y. So the product is going to be depth times density. So yeah, I think that's why I believe it's A. Okay, give me 1 second. So then copy that down. Okay, let's move on. Convert 3,200 mg to ounces. 1 gram equals to that, 0.03274 ounces. So what we got to do is kind of like do stoichiometry and chemistry. So we'll start with 3,200 mg, then times, and then I'm going to put a fraction, and I'm going to put mg here, and I'm going to put, what should I put? Shoot, what should I do? So mg here in the bottom, and then do I put grams? So 1 gram is 30.9. No, I think I have to do a double conversion, right? So, okay, let me look in the notes. Uh, okay, now it's so yeah, we kind of have to. So we know that We have to do a double conversion. Okay, so over here, yeah, we were right. Put milligrams in the bottom and then put grams on the top. And then, because our final answer has to be in ounces, so I'm going to put times. And then I'm going to put grams here because I want to get rid of the grams. And then on the top, you could put ounces. So this is something you should know. What is the relationship between grams and milligrams? So the keyword is milli, so I know that's related to 1,000. So we know that for 1 gram, there's going to be 1,000 milligrams. And then we can use this conversion. So we know that for 1 gram, sorry, sorry, writing, writing tablet is really old. Okay, so for 1 gram, there's going to be a 0.035,274. Okay. And as you can see, you put an invisible one here. As you can see, the milligrams disappears, the grams disappear, and your final unit is ounces. That's what we want. Now, if you recall, multiplying fractions, you multiply across, not cross multiply. So do 3,200. You could just times 1 times it by 0.035,274. And then on the bottom, it's just going to be 1 times 1,000 times it by 1. And when you put that in the calculator, you're going to get 0.112876.8. And then you don't see it because they rounded to 2 decimals. It would be just 0.11. Okay, so letter A. So yeah, just recap. Sometimes you have to do a double conversion. That's fine. And we did that and we got 0.1. So okay, a biologist wants to represent the distribution of a plant species in a forest ecosystem. Which of the following would be the most appropriate representation of the data? Is it A, a histogram, B, a flowchart, C, heat map, or D, a Sankey diagram? I have no idea what Sankey diagram is. Uh, so biology. Okay, I think it would be a heat map. Um, why would I say heat map? So let me read the problem again. Biologist wants to represent a distribution of plant species in a forest ecosystem. Which of the following would be the most appropriate representation of the data? And I chose histogram because it's very visual since heat map is used to visualize the density or distribution of data across 2 dimensions, typically using colors to represent intensity. It would be suitable for the representing the distribution of plant species in a forest ecosystem. So I see colors, I see density. So I think it's going to be heat map. Okay, this one simplified expression, 1 minus tan squared of 3x times cosine squared of 3x. So this one you kind of need to know your, I believe your Pythagorean identities. So there's 3 of them, right? And get it out. Okay. Actually, no, you don't have to use your pipe identity. You can use one of your tr trig trig identity. Like for example, tan is the same thing as y over x or sine of 3x over cosine of 3x, right? So what we could do is just replace that tan square tan square, excuse me, is 1 minus, so tan is sine over cosine. So what would be tan square? Sine square of 3x over cosine square of 3x, right? And then times it by cosine square of 3x. And what do we get? Or what do you see that cancels? Yes, I see the cosine square cancels. So you're left with 1 minus sine square of 3x. Okay. And what is 1 minus sine square? It's a Pythagorean. You use your Pythagorean theory, Pythagorean identity. So Pythagorean, I mean, is like sine square of x plus cosine square of x equals to 1. And when you subtract sine square x from both sides, you're going to get cosine square of x. So it's going to be 1 minus, and then we said that if you replace, so when you solve for sine square x, you're going to get 1 minus sine square of 3x. So you're going to replace this with 1 minus sine square 3x. Okay. If I FOIL this minus, it's going to be -1. And then this is going to be positive sine square 3x. And you have a 1 here, so this cancels. And now you're left with oops, I made a mistake. Sine square x is going to equal to, wait, this is wrong. Sine, when you subtract this sine square x, it should give you 1 minus cosine square of 3x, right? So here, let me do this again. So it's going to be 1 minus, and then we're going to replace sine square with x with, when you do that, you get cosine square. It's good, no, it's going to be 1 minus cosine square 3x. Does that make sense? Like, here, I'll show you. So we use the Pythagorean theorem, sine square x, or sine square 3x plus cosine square 3x equals to 1. And then when you got to subtract this sine square x on both sides. So this cancels. You're left with cosine square of 3x equals to 1 minus sine square 3x. Okay, so that is, whoops, made a mistake. See, it's going to be, so yeah, no, I think I was right. Cosine square of 3x is equal to 1 minus sine square of 3x. So as you can see, I'm going to replace this sine square x, or this 1 minus sine square x. I made a mistake. Here, I make a mistake. Okay, let me do this again. So we have 1 minus tan square of 3x times cosine square of 3x. What I'm going to do is substitute tan square with sine square over cosine square of 3x, right? So it's going to be 1 minus, and then replace that tan square x with sine square of 3x over cosine square of 3x, right? Times it by cosine square of 3x. And then what happens is these cancels. So you're left with 1 minus sine square of 3x. And then what I'm going to do is use my Pythagorean identity, right? So cosine square 3x plus sine square 3x plus 1. And then I'm going to, um, I want to get sine square x by itself. So in order to do that, I'm going to have to subtract cosine square 3x. So this cancels. So you're left with sine square 3x equals to 1 minus cosine square 3x. Okay, so it's going to be 1 minus parentheses, and then you're going to replace sine square x with 3x with 1 minus cosine square of 3x. And then you may FOIL distribute this minus, so this is -1. And then this is going to be positive cosine square 3x. And you have a 1 here, and what happens, these ones cancels, so you're left with cosine square 3x. So letter B. Find cosine inverse of negative radical 2 over 2. So basically what they're saying is what degree gives you a cosine of negative radical 2 over 2? So, okay, so if you look at your unit circle, let's figure out which quadrant we can use. So where is cosine negative? We'll use quadrant 1. No, the cosine is positive and sine is positive, so can't use that. We use quadrant 2, maybe. Cosine is definitely negative, that's what we want, and sine is positive. Then we use quadrant 3. Cosine is definitely negative, sine is also negative, so yeah, maybe. What about quadrant 4? Cosine is positive and sine is negative. No, we want a cosine that is negative. So we could use, no, quadrant 1. We could use quadrant 2 or 3, or can we? So unfortunately, if you're dealing with cosine inverse, you kind of need to know the range. So the range of a cosine inverse is from -1 to +1, right? Here's -1, there's +1. That means we can only use quadrant 1 and 2. So unfortunately, even though cosine is negative in quadrant 3, it's not within our range, so we can exclude that. So then you just got to figure out in your unit cycle, where's cosine negative radical 2 over 2, and that would be 135 degrees, right? If you look at your unit circle, it has an x-coordinate negative radical 2 over 2 and a y-coordinate positive radical 2 over 2, which we don't really care because we don't care about the negative. So the correct answer is 135. 38. Given two ordinary six-sided dice, what is the probability that you'll roll a 3 and an even number? So imagine you have two dice, right? You have two dice, and each dice has six faces or six sides, right? So you have two of them. You have two six-sided dice. What is the probability that you'll roll a 3 and an even? So the word and, I think that means either addition or subtract multiplication, right? And when you're dealing with and in probability, you're either multiplying or adding. Um, yes. So what I would do is first find the total outcomes. So yeah, fine. So first step is find total outcomes. So there's six and six. I think the total is 36, right? So our total outcome is 36. And what else? Identify the favorable outcome. So you have six, you have two dices, and each dice has six sides. So you have in the first dice, you have one, two, three, four, five, six, right? And then second dice, same idea. You have one, two, three, four, five, and six. So what is the probability that you'll roll a three and an even number? So here you have a three, and then you all two is even. Wait, so imagine, okay, so you have, so it would be the first, so let's look at the two dice. So that you'll roll a three and an even number. So on the first dice, let's call this die one, you have a three, and then two is even, right? So this is the first. So this is the first dice, and then keep on going. Uh, you have a three here, and then your other even number in the second dice is four, and then the next one is going to be three here and six there. Okay. And die two, um, it's going to be two and three, and then four and three, and six and two. So your probability is your desired. So on the first dice, it would be, so if you look at the first dice, there's a total of six choices. So it's going to be out of six, right? Out of six, and then it's just going to be one. And then the second one, so, oh, I remember, the word and means a multiplication. So you times it by the second probability. So on the second probability, it would be one out of two. So when you put it all together, what's 1/6 times 1/2? 1/12. So I'm going to say one. Question 39. A set of index cards is labeled 1 through 50 and stacked in a random order. You select three of these without looking, and when you first see them in your hand, you notice that the numbers on the cards increase from left to right. What is the probability that you draw three more cards, you'll draw the same increasing order? Let's see. So a set of index card, so our own, so there's some information we don't need. Our only concern is that the ways arranging the three numbers is it in your hand. What is so what is the probability that these numbers will be increased in order? So having gone into the key of the issue, we know that by noting that we could do 3 factorial. So what we have to do, we have to figure out how many ways we can rearrange three numbers, which is the same thing as 3 factorial, which is really 3 times 2 times 1, that is 6. And so we have 3 ways, yeah. So yeah, so having gone into the heat of the issue, now we can begin by noting that there are 6 possible choices. 3 ways to choose the first, multiplied to 2 ways to choose one of the remaining two, multiplied by 2 ways to choose possibilities. Of the 6 possibilities, only one will present the numbers of the cards. So yeah, we have 3 ways to choose the first, multiplied by the 2 ways to choose one of the remaining two, multiplied by 2 ways to choose. Of the 6 possibilities, only one will present the number of the card. So it's really just 1 out of 6. So letter A. Okay, the electric force F between two objects with charges C1 and C2 separated by a distance R is given by the formula below, where K is a constant. How much would the distance between these two objects need to shrink in order to double the magnitude of this force? So, what do you do? Yeah, they give you this, and yeah, so what we got to do, if they want to double it, it's going to be 2F, and then, so let me write this out. So we have F equals 2 times the magnitude. That gives you K times C1 times C2 all over R2. And that's going to equal to 2 times K times C1 C2 all over RF. It would give you RF equals to, oh, so this is R squared, and then this is going to be 1/2. And then what you're going to do is take the square root both sides. So this is going to be square root of 1 over square root of 2. And we know that square root of 1 is 1, and then on the bottom square root of 2. So it's going to be C. A researcher is conducting a survey to assess customer satisfaction with the product. Participants are asked to rate their satisfaction on a scale from 1 to 5. So one represents very dissatisfied and five represent very satisfied. What type of variable is satisfaction rating in this survey? Is it discrete, ordinal, categorical, or continuous? I believe it's going to be continuous. The reason why is because a continuous variable is one for which within the limits of the variable ranges. So it goes from one to five, so that's how I know it's continuous. Uh, which pr- what is the pressure range from the following data set? So range means y value, and they put it in interval notation. If you look at all the charts, how you put in interval notation is you go from smallest y value to largest. So if you look at your chart, my smallest y value starts at 0, and then my highest y value is 10. So I think it's C. Double check. Yes, wait. What is the pressure range in the following? Oh, it's actually five. Sorry. This is you have to look at these crevices. So these doesn't really count. It's not zero. Our smallest y value looks like it's at this right here. And that y value is at 5, and hill, the highest peak is at 10. So it's going to be B, 5 to 10. So let's see. So you you suddenly become obsessed with cats and start classifying them by tail and eye color, number of colors in fur, odor type, approachability, and the average fur volume. Which of the following best represents the classification of this data? Um, is it A, B, A scroll down, C, or D? What do you think? I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be C. And the reason why I think it's C is because the tail length and fur volume are quantitative and continuous because it can be any length, right? The numbers of colors in the fur is quantitative and discrete because it can take on and integer values. And the rest of the variables are quantitative, therefore neither discrete nor continuous. So what is quantitative versus qualitative? Quantitative is like where it can be measured by in numbers, qualitative is something that cannot be measured in numbers. So yeah, I think it's C's because the tail length and the fur volume are quantitative and continuous because it can be any length, and then the number of colors in the fur is quantitative and discrete because it can only take on an integer values. The rest of the variables are quantitative, therefore neither discrete nor continuous. Let's see here. This one. The dot plot below categorizes 20 individuals in an apartment building by the number of screens they regularly look at in their daily lives. What percentage look at two screens or less? Mm, so two screens or less, that means percentage. So let's figure out in percentage, what is the total outcome? So on the total outcome for screens of two or more, so that means that you include two. So for the screen two, how many individuals there are? Oh, one, two, three, four, five. Let's assume they're one by one. So for screen two, there's a total of one, two, three, four, five. And then for screen one, there's a total of one, two, three. So five plus three is six, seven, eight. And then what do we put on the top? Yes, what do we put on top? Oh, duh. They said I got this mixed up. We put eight on the top because that's how much people have two screens and less. And then we put 20 on the bottom because that they just said it was out of 20. So 8 out of 20 times by 100 is going to give you 40%. Okay, so yeah, letter D. You decide to invest some money so that it has a chance. Oops, let me clear. Yeah, you decide to invest some money so that it has a chance of paying you back in return. To evaluate your options, you look at different aspects of your potential assets to determine what affects their values. Average price, public perception of the company, running the asset, average price growth, number of positive slash negative media, mentioned, and the number of new regulations governing by the industry. According to the perception embraced by your model, which of these are dependent variables? I think dependent means Y, right? So which one of these could represent a Y value? Uh, is it A, the average price, positive slash negative? So yes, it would be, I would say D. So according to the perception embraced by the model, which of these are dependent variables? So independent um, is like an X, and dependent depends on the X, right? So dependent, it would be like Y value. So which of these could represent dependent would be dependent on the X value? And I'd say it's D. It would be according to the, yeah, according average price, average. growth, right? Average price and average growth depends on the X value, right? So according to the model, you're investigating how the value of assets is affected by certain factors. With this in mind, the dependent variable are those that describe the value of the assets, average price and average price growth. These then depend on the variables such as pub. Yeah. So dependent um are the y values, which depends on the x value. So uh it would have to be t because d represents the y value, right? Average price growth, which uh 46. In a game, a player has 30% chance of winning, a 50% chance of losing, and a 20% chance of tying. If the player plays 3 games in a row, what is the probability of winning exactly 2 games? Uh, I would say, I'm gonna say, so yes. So this can be calculated using a binomial probability formula. The probability of winning exactly 2 games out of 3. So yeah, so we're gonna it's the probability of winning exactly 2 games out of 3 is uh 3/2 times 0.3 times 0.7. So it's really saying 3 factorial over 2 factorial times it by 3 - 2 factorial times 0.3 squared times 0.7. And that gives me 0.0. So C. Uh, what is the average altitude along the section of the trail measured below? What is the average altitude along the section of the trail of measured below? So you have on the x you have the distance along the trail, and the y you have the altitude. So they would say so yes. I'm going to say, so this, what you have to do is take the sum of the altitude, which is 29, right? So sum of the altitude. So you at here. So for example, these are coordinates. So you have a coordinate at this one at 1 comma 2. This is 2 comma 3. So the altitude is the y coordinate, right? So you add up all the y's, which you gives 29. And then the sum of the altitude is 29, and there are 9 measurement in total. So it's 29 over 9, which is D. Last one. Data set. The data set has a mean of 50 and a standard deviation of 10. If a new data set point of 70 is added to the data sheet, what happens when the mean and what happens to the mean and standard deviation? So pretend you have a data set that's 50 and a standard deviation of 10. If a new data set of 70 is added to the data set, what happens to the mean and standard deviation? Does it even changes? I'm gonna so when you add 70 into the this val into the data set, which originally had a mean of 50 and a standard deviation of 10, and when you add 70 to that new data set, um, what happens is the mean increases and the standard deviation increases. So when you add a 70 to that point, 70 to that data, what happens is the mean increases and the standard deviation increases. So mean increases and standard deviation increases. So A. Okay. Let's see. I think we I'm gonna just test it, but I think we got 100. Let's just double check. Oh, here's the that. Oh, 95. Let me see what we got wrong or what I got wrong. That one's right. That one's right. That's right. Oh, this one. Dang it. In a right triangle, one leg has a length of x and the other has a length of y. The hypotenuse has a length of h. Consider the acute angle opposite leg of y. I think I got theta wrong, so let's do this again. So you have this right triangle, right? Here's your right, here's your theta. One of the leg has x, and then one of the other leg is y, and then the hypotenuse is this, and then SOHCAHTOA, so cosine of theta is so is adjacent, which is x, and then hypotenuse is h. So h. So I think yeah, that's why it's a. So it is important where yeah, it's a. So it is important where you put your theta is. We were going to put theta right here, but that was wrong. And they specifically say theta should be the opposite of the leg y. So that's why theta should be there. Okay, I think that's the only one I got wrong. Let's double check. That's right. That's right. Right. Mhm. Good, good, good. Yep. Oh, it's ordinal. Okay. So a researcher is conducting a survey to assess customer satisfaction with the product. Participants were asked to rate their satisfaction on a scale from 1 to 5, where 1 represents very dissatisfied and 5 represents very satisfied. What type of variable satisfaction rating in the survey? I guess it is ordinal. So what is the reason for ordinal? Is because this is because satisfaction rating is ordinal variable. Ordinal variables represent categories with a natural order or ranking. Okay, so if you have something in order, it's ordinal. Duh. Okay, in the case of satisfaction ratings. Okay, so if you have a order, you know it's ordinal. So that's why. And I think that is it. So we only missed two, so we're good. Okay, I'm going to stop here.